Donk Nation, Jax and Janet's greetings and welcome to your daily dose of donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, bringing you some nonsensical Steelers talk. And Gingy, boy, it has kind of got nonsensical up in here. Wish Laskers was here to give us another opinion. We'll get to him maybe some other time. But the Steelers' moves, when you look at them individually, I'm going to start off with this. I am a fan of almost every move except for the Deontay Johnson trade. I think that was a terrible move. But when I look at them as a whole, Genji, I hate where it looks like this is going.
Gingy in the house, yeah, it's nonsensical Steelers world out there, isn't it, Donkey? It's
Twilight Zone.
There are so many changes this week. It's making my head spin. Not only in Steelers land, but in the NFL. It's a wild west out there, Donkey. But in terms of Steelers, yeah, how do you upgrade individual positions and overall downgrade your team? I don't know, Donkey. I don't know. Probably because we're not looking. We replaced some key areas, but I'm not sure that we're talking about value overall.
Let's be honest here and say we upgraded maybe one position, and honestly, that upgrade was only an upgrade over all the injured players who had to replace the starter. Okay, because I don't see a difference between Cole Holcomb and Patrick Queen in terms of value there. Which, by the way, let's break into it. Big signing, Patrick Queen. Big signing, Russell Wilson. Bringing in Deshaun Elliott, not a big signing, and I'll get into why that is. The Steelers trade Deontay Johnson. They trade Kenny Pickett. They cut Mason Cole. Where do you want to start, Gingy? Because I have a lot to say about all of it.
Let's review it maybe by positions or units, right? Let's look at quarterback first of all, right? So I'll start with big news today: Kenny Pickett to the Eagles, pick switch, right? And in my opinion, Donkey, not a major,
a third and 2 7s.
Not necessarily a major pick switch for me. Donkey.
No.
Not a ton of value there for a guy that we spent a first rounder on 2 years ago.
Right. I think the Steelers probably could have got a better deal from some other teams. I'm looking specifically at Denver, but they wanted to move Kenny to the NFC just in case he does succeed. They don't want it blowing up in their face. This whole situation, and we have to talk about the Russ Wilson signing here because that's what led to this trade, right? And me and you texted and Laskers, and my first thing was, man, I don't mind Russ Wilson at a vet minimum, but you know damn good and well, Gingy, he was guaranteed the job when he came here, and I hate that. That's what I said, and then the more information we get, the more it seems that was the truth. There was never going to be a competition with Kenny Pickett having a chance to win, just like why Mason Rudolph went to Tennessee this time. He knew he wouldn't get a fair shake, just like he didn't back in the Mitch Trubisky day. When you have a guy who is signed allegedly to be the backup, because remember, they said Kenny Pickett's still the guy even after the Russ Wilson rumors and signing. They said Kenny Pickett would still be the guy. If you're the guy, why when you call your coach does he tell you, oh yeah, by the way, the new guy's going to take all the first team reps? Does that make you feel like you're the guy, Gingy?
Doesn't seem like it, Donkey.
So here we are again, the Pittsburgh Steelers guaranteeing a outside quarterback who's coming off of a bad year or an unsuccessful year, much like the last one in Mitch Trubisky, guaranteeing him a job and then faking a competition. Except this year, the quarterback on the roster knew it was a fake competition and asked out, Gingy. And by the way,
yep.
all things on the board, last year's Russell Wilson was better than last year's Kenny Pickett. I'm not arguing that. I just hate this signing because Russ Wilson is the safe pick who doesn't provide a whole lot of upside, in my opinion. And we could argue what Kenny Pickett's upside is, but at least, or Mason Rudolph, which, by the way, I think Mason played as good those last 4 games as Russell did any 4 games during last year. We could argue the upside play there, but the young guys who have not a history of decline, to me, have the upside that the old vet doesn't. But this is a safe play, which is how the Steelers like it. Gingy, what's your take?
Yeah, they're able to get out cheap, too. They're cheap with Russell Wilson.
That's the best part about it. At least we're not paying him.
Yeah, Thank you, Denver. We don't have to. Thank you, Denver. Exactly. But that should allow us some money to build up some other positions. But before we get letting Mason go, good chance for him to get another opportunity somewhere else. Good for him. But yeah, we really better. I'd really like to see a plan there. I was talking to plan. We better have like this. Seems like an instance where hopefully somebody has something worked out here. Donkey, you would hope, right? Because I mean, we need more than one quarterback on the roster. Clearly,
I hear you for sure. And we need someone to compete with Russell Wilson. I don't think guaranteeing a guy who was once the face of the Seahawks, and they were quick to get rid of him because Geno Smith was outplaying him, gets traded to Denver, gets this huge contract, and they were so done with him in less than 2 years that they're paying him $80 million to stay away from the team. Like, I'm sorry, but that doesn't bode confidence in me. And this is a guy who, look at his stats, the last 3 years have been on a downcline. He's 36. Do we really expect his play to elevate next year? Or do we expect the continual decline, much like we saw with Ben Roethlisberger? I just don't see the upside on this team that's better than what Ben Roethlisberger was in 2020. And if you remember in 2020, when we got to the playoffs, we were proven to be a fraud of a team. I just don't see how this is any different.
yeah, and we don't have a guy with a proven. I don't know, Donkey Russ. It's not sustainable. That's my issue. Not
What does
sustainable.
Russ have? One playoff win in the last decade? My God, Gingy, if there was ever a Mike Tomlin perfect quarterback, it's a guy who has had regular season success, past success way back in the day, which, by the way, Russ isn't the guy you want to have the ball at the end of the game. If you think he is, turn on that Super Bowl where instead of giving it to beast mode, they let Russ throw it. And tell me how the Patriots dynasty ended up because of a dumb decision by a coaching staff. But Russ Wilson, not much playoff success, dwindling down, but he protects the football and doesn't turn it over. He's an old guy who understands how to win. This is the most Mike Tomlin guy I've ever seen. And wouldn't it be perfect if Mike Tomlin, bringing in the most Mike Tomlin guy ever, led to his first ever losing season? Not that I want that, but I think it would just be poetic.
Whoa, Donkey, you're talking about some pretty bad juju right there, my guy.
Hey, we could bring Juju back. We don't have any wide receivers.
Ha! Good one. But,
right.
Yeah, we can move on to a different position, maybe, I'm thinking, right?
I want to get to something before we go back into positions. We'll start probably next into wide receivers. Before we get there, Gingy, this is something I really wanted to start off with and I forgot. I'm going to break down a hypothetical for you, okay? You're a third place team. You somehow sneak into the playoffs, but you get obliterated in the playoffs, okay? Your quarterback room is a mess. Your team has some of the worst bloated contracts in football on defense. You spent no money on offense, and really you're lacking a marquee playmaker on the offensive side of football. You go into the offseason. The other three teams in your division all have franchise quarterbacks, big money quarterbacks, have all started adding pieces like all pro running backs, first round pick wide receivers. You're sitting there as that team, and you really don't feel like you're that A-tier team. Do you go all in the next season, or do you start the teardown process?
You gotta tear it down, Donkey.
So why the hell are the Pittsburgh Steelers all in?
I don't know. Is this their... Is we got to get rid of those... I mean, we talked about this too before. Those contracts on defense are really, really hampering us unless we get the production for the money. That's what you got to look for at the end of the day, Donkey.
Would be gone if they were
That's what you got to look for at the end. That's what you got to look for at the end of the day. Money is fine, but it has to equate to numbers. Whoever's got the numbers has to get the money.
We have three players on defense right now that are projected to make more than our total spending on offense in an offensive league. The Pittsburgh Steelers promised us big changes in the mindset, changes in the way we do things. Did they mean they were just going to triple down on the bad take of trying to build a defensive championship team because that shit don't work and they're just going to literally spend no money on offense? Was that the big changes? Was the big changes bringing in Arthur Smith, who is a very run-first coordinator, and I'll be honest, he's he's an upgrade from what Randy Fichtner is, but he's not a huge upgrade from Randy Fichtner because he's still a run first type of guy. Now, is he a huge upgrade from Matt Canada? Hell yeah, but that's because Matt Canada's a fraud. But when you look at this team, it looks like we're doing nothing different, Gingy. We were promised big changes, and while the pieces might have different names, they all play the same style of football. Kenny Pickett was let to be the starter because he was safe with the football. Russ Wilson is a safe with the football quarterback. Is he an upgrade? Maybe. Arthur Smith was brought in to be a change from Matt Canada, but they both run a run heavy style of offense, which right now it looks like we're running zero personnel and goal line as our base offense. Shinji, did I miss the big changes?
No, I don't think so. Looks like a lot more the same to me.
Okay. Do you want to go to another position group that changed, which would be the wide receivers then?
Yeah, let's do that then.
Okay, so Allen Robinson cut, clearly not worth $10 million. Can't pay that guy what he was. And by the way, for everybody who's listening, this is as it stands today. Clearly, my opinion can change tomorrow if we were able to trade for Justin Jefferson, right? Okay, That would change my opinion on everything. But as it stands today, you trade away the best receiver on this team and say what you want. Look at George Pickens' numbers when Deontay Johnson didn't play. Deontay Johnson is that guy who drew the double coverage more than anybody else on this team, and he still was relatively great at getting open. Can he be frustrating? Yes. We have the unforced errors check now because of Deontay Johnson, right? But you lose him, you lose Allen Robinson. It doesn't seem like there's a replacement, and basing it on a rookie kind of kills me. But more importantly, Gingy, I have to talk about getting Dante Jackson in this trade because I hate it. We owe him more money than we would have owned Deontay Johnson, and he's a dude who last year had no sacks, no interceptions, and was terrible in coverage down there in Carolina. I mean, and he wasn't playing. It's not like he was terrible in coverage because he was covering number one receivers. Remember, they have J.C. Horn, who is their number one corner down there. So he struggled as a number two corner last year to where his stats, relative, like passer rating, completion percentage, all that, was worse than Patrick Peterson. But what's scarier to me is he was slower on the field last year than the Steelers' slowest corner in Shandon Sullivan. I hate this trade. I know you had to get rid of Deontay Johnson. I love that part of the trade, but I hate the return we got here, Gingy.
Yeah, I wish it could have been a better return. I feel like we were really held hostage there. And I don't... That's tough.
Kansas City apparently offered us at least a fourth if it wasn't even higher to a third.
Fourth or third.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, though, look at that roster if you give him Deontay Johnson and he stops acting up like a child.
If the Steelers are in the rebuild like we both agree they should, right? Does it matter if Deontay Johnson balls for 1 year in Kansas City and then gets a payday somewhere else?
Doesn't really, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Not unless we have intentions of beating Kansas City.
You should be maximizing your assets at this point, not worried about trying to compete with Kansas City when Kansas City is the clear and present best. Okay, so I don't like that at all. And Gingy, we did just make another move. We signed Van Jefferson, the 2020 second-round pick out of Florida. Never really worked out with the Rams. Got traded to Atlanta. Never really worked out at Atlanta. But apparently Arthur Smith likes him enough to bring him here to Pittsburgh. I'm going to compare him one-on-one to Miles Boykin in that number 5 receiver spot. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'd rather have Miles Boykin, and the reason is Miles Boykin's really good on special teams.
Well, I don't know much about Van Jefferson, so sounds like he's already been around quite a few teams already. Nobody wants to stick with him, Donkey. Artie Smith, though, here's your X factor, Donkey, in all this, right? Artie Smith,
being him in his goal line package. Get ready for a lot of Connor Hayward and Darnell Washington because we don't have no damn wide receivers. All right,
13 plays. 12 minutes, 11 runs, 2 passes. Artie Smith. Here we go.
We don't have Derrick Henry. Hell, we don't even have Bijan Robinson. And he had that in Atlanta. And I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but Bijan Robinson is better than anything we have on the roster.
I don't know. What if the whole offense has been really hindered? All these guys. If Najee Harris can explode under an actual, I mean, you saw some of the runs that he was running into last year, right? Donkey,
Yeah,
some of
and I
them
also watched
formations.
just
We got Cass out there, Donkey, of us really, really tearing into them plays that
I
were
hear
being called
ya,
for
but
him.
Fechner wasn't as bad as Canada, and we ran more of the feature style thing the first year with Najee. It ain't there, dude. He's a fine runner. He's like a Gus Edwards type, though. Should have been a fourth round pick, a physical guy who, if he runs straight, is effective. But you can't look at Najee and tell me there's home run speed there. He doesn't break those. Bijan Robinson does. Derrick Henry did. That's the big difference. Is you look at and we can all say whatever the hell we want about Arthur Smith, but look at those years in Atlanta before Bijan Robinson and look how unproductive their running game was with Cordell Patterson as the main guy. And by the way, he's more explosive. No, we could actually sign him, so maybe that's something to go. I told you before, I think Arthur Smith is going to improve this offense. I think this offense gets borderline top 10 results because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to run over those mediocre teams. We've seen it before. But this system doesn't work against those elite football teams because those elite football teams are going to put up points.
Right. Yeah. And then you don't want to get in the track meet with them, but it's got to be mid-20s
You got to be
consistently.
able to score, but more problem some is I don't think our defense can stop those good teams' offenses. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get to the offensive line, Gingy. Cutting Mason Cole without any replacement ready to go, letting Chuck Okorafor get cut, and I still say Chucks is better than Dan Moore Jr. So you've lost two starter capable offensive linemen, and yeah, I know Broderick Jones is a ready-made backup, but Dan Moore shouldn't be starting. We have two really big black holes on this offensive line right now.
Yeah, I hear you, Donkey. We need a lineman. Definitely looking at the draft, but you can't fill all these positions, or can you?
How well did it work out last time we looked at the draft to fill tackle and center? I believe we got Kendrick Green and Dan Moore Jr.
Well, let's hope it goes better than that.
When you pigeonhole yourself into having to take a position, it's terrible. And right now, the Steelers have a lot of needs. We can move over to the defensive side if you like here, Gingy. The defensive line, we brought back Montravis Adams. I mean, he's he's literally the definition of a Jag, so I have no hate on that move, but no love for that move. I think the biggest loss, though, is Armon Watts at the end of last year was clearly the best depth lineman we had. He's moved on to New England. We really haven't talked about the Steelers adding anyone there, and the options are really starting to dwindle as both offensive and defensive linemen are really getting gobbled up here at the early parts of free agency. There has to be some depth added. Larry Ogunjobi last year was below average. Cam Hayward was average, but was hurt. If they don't add some depth in that defensive line, Gingy, remember how we got it run down our throats last year? It's going to be the same damn thing again.
Yeah, I don't see it being able to change this year with anything we've done so far. Again, it's not over yet. We got to make a move in the draft. That's what I smell coming.
Okay, what do you draft? Do you need a wide receiver, an offensive tackle, a center, a defensive lineman, maybe a quarterback, a cornerback? Where do you go? Because you only have so many picks, and
I
only so
know.
many that are going to land you starter capable people.
I hear you, Donkey. That's the $1 million question, right? Where do you go? If you're the
When you
Steelers,
have
you're probably
more
going to pick a
needs,
defensive player, right?
yes, it's actually true. Look at last year; we drafted one offensive lineman and then triple dipped into defense.
Yeah,
You're laughing, but it's
I'm
true.
laughing because I just watched it happen. Yes, I know. But
Like
in all honesty, we got to go get our guy at tackle and actually move back Broderick to his natural position. So we need a right?
that's fine. So we're
Because
just
that
gonna play with
capitalizes on
frickin'
the
big fat Herbig as the center.
because that capitalizes on the first round investment you already made last year. You might as well make that investment work, right?
Fair.
So then you got so then you got cornerstones, 2 end tackles on a line, right? You should
hear
be
ya,
able
but
with Simualu and a journeyman center, you should be able to hold that unit together with that value, right?
this is a thing that I want to bring up, and it's much that scares me. The Pittsburgh Steelers are banking on Isaac Simualu, who, by the way, has had one fully healthy season in his 8-year career, and it just happened to be last year. They're really banking on him being a year older and staying healthy for another full season. I just snorted. Much like they are TJ Watt on defense. And that really concerns me, Gingy. I'm not going to lie here. Relying on guys as they get older, ideally what you want to do is you want to be able to draft people who are going to take the place of that guy who's becoming a free agent, right? That's the ideal situation. You draft a guy, he's ready to take over the spot. The Steelers are so far behind that we can't even use 6th-round draft picks on guys who are going to be able to develop. It's feeling like 6th-round draft picks are going to need to come in and start. And we haven't even got to my favorite signing the Steelers made, even though I think they overpaid for him.
You want to get there on that? We were talking about defensive ballers, so...
Middle linebacker. Let's get there. Let's talk about Patrick Queen. He's a guy who really struggled before Baltimore got Roquan Smith, and then he turned into a pretty good downhill thumper. And Gingy, everyone's talking about how it's okay, Queen can cover, he can do this. Patrick Queen's career coverage stats are worse than Vince Williams. Okay, that's where I want to start. So everyone who's out there saying he's a 3-down banger that never has to come off the field, he does play all 3 downs, but his coverage stats are worse than Vince Williams. And this is where my problem with the albatross of the contract comes. Gingy, do you watch enough of other teams to understand and rank all these players who were signed? Like, I'm just curious. Are we deep enough in other teams' knowledge?
Fairly enough. Like,
okay, so Levante David compared to Patrick Queen.
Hold up. I was going to say, if you see Devin White out there moving at 7.5 for 1 year.
I'm getting into that, but we're going to start with who I think was the best middle linebacker available.
Okay.
By the way, it's because he outplayed Devin White on the same team, ironically. Levante David, right? Compare him to Patrick Queen.
Okay.
My personal thing is, it's fair to say Levante David is head and shoulders the better player. Yeah, he's older, but the dude's a Pro Bowler. The dude's an All-Pro. The dude is a stud in the middle. If it wasn't for Warner over there in San Fran, would get all those accolades, right? He signs a 2-year deal for $12 million a year. Okay, now let's get to the guys who I think are same level as Patrick Queen. That's going to include guys like Josie Jewell. That's going to include Devin White, who was the guy I'd have preferred to bring in. And that's going to include Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner signs what? 1 year, $7 million to go to the Commanders. Josie Jewell signs a 4-year, $8 million per year contract to go to Carolina. And these are teams that have a lot of cap space compared to the Steelers. And, of course, you just said it, Devin White signed a 1-year, $7 million contract, 7.5, whatever it is, to go somewhere. The Steelers signed Patrick Queen for more money than Levante David got. He signed at $13 million a year. I think Patrick Queen's a fine signing. I think having a thumper there is a fine signing. But this is my problem, Gingy. Patrick Queen isn't that next level guy. He's not that Levante David. And when you're seeing Levante David get less per year than Patrick Queen, that's an overpay. Sometimes you have to overpay. That's why I don't hate this move. And maybe he does. I don't see how, because Roquan Smith made up for a lot of mistakes he made, but maybe he does take that next step and becomes a superstar. So maybe it's worth it. I'm not going to judge. Like I said, I actually like bringing in Patrick Queen. I think he's a little overpaid because of the contracts I just named, which were all this offseason. So it makes no sense to me why we had to pay so much to get him. But here's my real problem, Gingy. The Steelers were healthy at the start of the year, and Cole Holcomb was playing good, right?
Yep.
We still have Cole Holcomb at like $7 million a year. We still have a Landon Roberts at $5 million a year, which means one of those two is going to be a really expensive bench piece. But the big problem is, based off of his play last year, Patrick Queen is not an upgrade from Cole Holcomb. So even if you just look at Holcomb's contract, we're essentially playing Patrick Queen double the money we played Holcomb to do the same thing Holcomb did at the same level. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Queen takes a step forward. But this just looks like we just threw $13 million into a pit, and we didn't come out any better.
Defensive investments, Donkey. We've done enough defensive investing.
We've been paying the highest paid defense for like 10 years. What the hell has that done for us?
Not much so far.
Giving us bloated contracts for guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, Alex Highsmith. All I see is bloated contracts that are preventing this team from signing players that matter.
It's starting to look like that, Donkey. We got to see some production from those guys. Like I said earlier, money equals production. They got to have TJ Watt. Didn't mention him on this list. He earns every bit of that money. Look at them numbers.
I purposely avoided him.
Yeah, them numbers equate to that money all day. Those other guys that you mentioned aren't putting out those numbers.
At least not at this point in their careers. None of them have played up to snubs. And Alex Highsmith makes no sense because he's a young dude that should have been progressing, but Jesus, did he take a step and a half back last year.
Yeah.
You just can't have that. And let's get to the defensive backs. Gone are probably Levi Wallace. I doubt he gets re-signed. Shannon Sullivan, doubt he gets re-signed. Cut Patrick Peterson. But then we trade for a corner who would have cost us more than what Patrick Peterson cost us and who had a worse year than Patrick Peterson had last year. Little bit concerned here. I mean, Joey Porter Jr., I think that's a good foundation. If we go with Jackson in there as the number 2, I see that as a problem. And this might be the bigger problem, dude. Jackson's small, 5'10", 175. My understanding is, Gingy, when he was at Carolina, he refused to play slot. If he's not willing to play slot, I don't think he should be on this team.
It's going to be hard to find unless he can be a number 2, which, with what you're saying, that's not going to be possible.
Unless he manages to somehow regain all that speed that he lost from the Achilles injury 2 years ago, which, if you know about Achilles injuries, very rarely do those people come back and regain the speed. Like, normally they are a step slower for the rest of their career. So expecting him to come back and have that same speed when that's all he really had, bold move. But maybe the bolder part, Gingy, was the Panthers told everyone they were going to cut him at the start of the new year. Why the hell did you trade to get a $10 million corner who, if he got cut, dude, Tre'Davious White hasn't even signed with a team yet. You're telling me this dude deserves $10 million when Tre'Davious White can't even get a contract, or Xavier Howard for that matter? My God, man, I must be losing my mind.
Yeah, either one of those guys is way better choice.
Don't forget, he played in the AFC South, which is probably the worst division in football last year, and they had a last place schedule. So it's not like the Panthers were playing a bunch of ballers last year. They were playing a garbage schedule, and this dude was their number 2 corner and was still getting burned on the regular.
Let's hope he performs up. But like you said, Achilles, not the value we wanted for Deontay Johnson.
No. We can move to safety. Deshaun Elliott, 2 years, $6 million, I think is about average value for him. Another former Baltimore Raven, because apparently all we want is Baltimore Ravens leftovers now, although his last year was played in Miami. He's a guy, when you look at the numbers, dude, he's Terrell Edmonds. He's like a smaller version of Terrell Edmonds. And what's funny is everyone in Pittsburgh always said how we needed to upgrade from Terrell Edmonds because he's just a guy. But honestly, this is the kind of safety you should match with Minkah. I would have preferred to bring back Terrell Edmonds, but really Elliott's not a bad bring in. I've watched a lot of him when he was in college because he played at Texas, and I enjoy watching the Longhorns and the Panthers. Those are 2 teams I watched in college. So I watched him in college, came out the same year as Edmonds. Solid box safety that maybe lets Minkah go back to playing free safety, but at the money he's paid, I wouldn't be surprised if KZ comes in as the starter and Minkah's the box safety again. And I don't know. I mean, Elliott's a decent run stuffer. Like I said, he's smaller than Edmonds, so gets run over every once in a while. And his coverage skills, they're nothing to write home about, but they're not terrible. This is actually a signing that I enjoyed because he's the type of safety the Steelers should match with Minkah. But we can argue whether or not I think the Steelers should keep Minkah. Spoiler alert, I don't think they should. But Gingy, I think Elliott brings a good substance to the secondary.
Yeah, I agree. The whole Minka Fitzpatrick discussion is a whole different topic. Again,
Bad contracts.
Contract. He's had that level at his career before.
Zero turnovers for $24 million.
Guy you adjusted the positions on. I don't think he's playing natural. He's kind of playing AKA out of position back there. I'm not sure, but definitely didn't match the first 2 years in Pittsburgh, right?
There was no explosion from him. There was
just no splash plays. That's what we wanted from that defense. And that's why you pay those guys, Donkey. You pay those guys for splash plays. That's what makes that defense tick.
But I think the teams and I think what the Steelers got into last year is Minka missed a lot of the games against the bad teams, and that's to where he tends to put up stats. Because the good teams know you don't attack the Steelers deep over the middle. You throw the 10-yard comebacks that we never cover, and the good teams exploit that. I think what really happened last year was Minka, the games he missed was the bad games, so he never had a chance to put up stats. Because when you put on Minka stats through his career as a Steeler, he's that guy who disappears in a big game. And I don't mean this to be mean to him. Yeah, he'll have 11 tackles, but you don't see him forcing turnovers in big games. That's TJ Watt. Hell, that's maybe even Alex Highsmith more so than Minka Fitzpatrick. And to me, that's the problem right here is I know we can talk Steelers. I know we can talk all this. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, Gingy, are built in this Mike Tomlin essence, right? And the Mike Tomlin essence isn't one of a champion. The Mike Tomlin essence is of a guy who doesn't lose. He's of a guy that does enough to get that win, right? That 9-8 record, that claw, that fight, that grasp. And he brings in guys who aren't. When you look at all these signings, is there a single one of them where you go, that's the impact, that's the next level, that's the game changer? Is there one of those?
Not that I've seen.
Has there ever been one of those in the Mike Tomlin era?
Oh, boy.
The answer
That's a
is
good
no.
question.
The answer is no.
Like in free agency?
Yeah, free agency.
Yeah.
Not drafts. Obviously, we drafted. We drafted Antonio freaking Brown, bro.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Le'Veon Bell.
Okay. Yeah, no, never really paid to bring everybody into town.
Right. So what starts to happen to a team when you don't have those impact players being brought in free agency and you refuse to go out and sign? Well, that's what I'm talking about, the free agency. But you refuse to have a bad season, which means you never get that talented guy unless you get lucky in the draft, right? So what you're seeing is that team that's devoid of just explosive next level players. I mean, yeah, we got solid guys, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Najee Harris, those solid level guys. But where's a Justin Jefferson, right? Where's a Saquon Barkley? Where's a Christian McCaffrey? Who's the tight end that Laporta, the tight end the Detroit Lions just got last year? Where is that next level guy, Gingy? And when do the Steelers realize in order to get that next level guy, you either have to go hard in free agency or you have to do something with draft capital?
Yeah, what if you bring in Justin Jefferson right now? How'd you feel about that?
Twofold. Am I getting a quarterback first? Because if it's with Russell Wilson, I don't give a shit. I'm going to be honest with you.
Russell Wilson.
If it's Russell Wilson as my quarterback, you bring in Jefferson, I don't give a rat's butt. Dude, he played with DK Metcalf in Seattle. I didn't win schnot when it mattered. So, no thank you. Okay. If I'm going to go get Justin Herbert, if I'm going to trade up and get one of those young quarterbacks, if I'm going to give it Justin Fields and be like, hey, this is your last chance, different story. But if it's to be with Russ Wilson and Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin, pass. Hard pass.
Dang, yeah, that'd be a tough It's looking more. Yeah, you want an offensive guy. How are we going to get that quarterback if you don't get him in free agency, donkey? You only draft one of the other ones like once a generation.
It's true. I'm not saying it's
Unless
an
you're
easy thing to do.
unless you're Green Bay or Indianapolis or one of those teams, but
Right. And I hear you. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, right? But I'm saying moving on from a rookie quarterback as early as the Steelers did. If you're a guy who's a fringe starter, Pittsburgh's not an area you're going to look for. The way you get a guy is, I know this is going to sound terrible, but not everyone had a fair shake their first go around. Minnesota just brought in Sam Darnold, right? You take a chance with a guy like Sam Darnold, a former first round pick. You take a chance in bringing in maybe Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, someone of that nature, or heaven forbid, and I know you're going to hate this, but I trade TJ Watt for Justin Herbert. And I understand all the reasons not to, because TJ's the only dude who you could argue earns his paycheck on that defense. And I understand he's great. But Gingy, pull up the list of top 10 pass rushers in terms of sacks. Tell me how many of them played on a playoff team.
I know
year.
they're not as high impact, right?
No,
and I agree. If you got Herbert, you'd have to. I don't think the Chargers are doing that. But
the way they've blown up their whole roster, I wouldn't be so sure. And I might sound really stupid here, but I might even throw in our first round draft pick along with Watt to get him and a third.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have how old is Herbert? Like
26?
6?
Somewhere in there?
Yeah. You do that.
You take a chance on a guy like Justin Fields, right? There's ways to go about this.
He still might be coming to town, donkey. We'll see.
I hope so. I really do. After the Kenny Pickett trade, I really hope so. And by the way, I think we got value for Kenny Pickett based off the year he had last year. Everybody knowing that he wasn't going to be a starter. Getting a fourth turned into a third and 2 sevenths seems about value, because if you saw what Sam Howell brought or Desmond Ridder, it was really nothing. Ridder might even got cut. I don't know, Gingy. I'm sitting here, and as it stands today, as a Steelers fan, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to get excited about this team potentially going 10-7 again and getting blown out in the playoffs? Because I can't see where we made a step forward to compete with the top echelon. And yeah, it sucks that we're in the AFC, because that's where all the really, you look at the depth of good to great teams. It's in the AFC, right? That's what it is. Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo make everyone's top 3. Now, that could switch next year. I mean, if Detroit continues doing what they're doing, if San Francisco and Brock Purdy play the way they played last year, and let's say Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay or Jordan Love in Green Bay take a jump forward, then we're talking, even diversity of talent again. But recently it's been a hard-fought AFC. But what scares me more, Gingy, is we have 3 football teams who have better quarterbacks than us that are going all in on this year. Cleveland bringing in Jerry Jeudy. Baltimore bringing in Derrick Henry. We have these teams that were already better than us getting better. At that point, if you're a smart person, in my opinion, you have to tear it down. But instead, we're just building another 9-8 football team. And Gingy, you're the guy who always comes in with the black and gold tinted glasses.
Mm-hmm.
How do you convince me this team has a chance to compete?
Artie Smith being the X factor, donkey. Watch out in terms of Najee Harris developing into a Derrick Henry, developing into a high impact running style offense, bootlegging with Russell off the play action, donkey. Splash plays on defense. Maybe not maybe not all those guys living up to their contracts. Ogunjobi's a long sell, but both TJ and Minka Fitzpatrick operating in the secondary with splash plays. That team sneaks by a first round, second round playoff. That team gets some momentum, donkey. It's not completely stupid. It's not like a fairy tale.
I hear you on that, but there's just a good chance we go 9-8 and miss the playoffs.
There's a good chance of that too, especially if Russell Wilson
by says
or
exactly. We're expecting Russell Wilson to bounce back, right? We're expecting Minka Fitzpatrick to bounce back. We're expecting Cam Hayward to keep off age for another year. Larry Ogunjobi to kick back age for another year. TJ Watt to stay healthy for the whole year. Alex Highsmith to prove that his 1 year fluke wasn't a 1 year fluke. We're expecting Joey Porter Jr. to take another step forward. And we don't have a second corner, so I can't even say we're expecting this guy to be an upgrade. And we're expecting a defense, which, by the way, every time we played a good offense, got shredded to be good. And Gingy, that's where my problem is. I agree with you. The offense is going to be better. I don't think the defense is.
Well, you're just telling me to put on black and gold glasses. That's not a super high probable reality.
You're killing it. Stick with the positive stick, Gingy. That's what we need. Content,
that's the one path, Donkey, through the deep, dark forest that leads us to the light. One small path. That is the one that I described to you. The rest is very large lost forest, right?
I put all my Steelers positive energy into that playoff game where Baker Mayfield smacked our booty hole, and I will never, ever, ever be the outlier again because, man,
until proven
otherwise, hyped for that
right?
game. I honestly love that game, and you want to know what I decided after that game? Man, the Steelers aren't that different from the Pirates, all right? I'm going to go into the year, and my expectation is going to be they're going to be meh. And if they do better than meh, guess who the happiest dude in the room is? Me, because they surpassed my expectations. But if they are meh, guess who's really not hurt because they expected it? Me. The Pittsburgh Pirates have taught me how to cope with what has been the last decade of Pittsburgh Steeler football, okay? And I hate the fact that's the way I have to look at this, Gingy. Why, with our historic run that we had, because even when we were bad, at least there was some, things are going to look up. We just drafted Cordell Stewart when I was a kid, right? Oh, Tommy Gunn's here. Let's go. I guess we have Russ now. Let's ride going into it. But Gingy, I just don't feel like this team has that hunger, that desire, that want. And we can say what we want. What do the Steelers have a playoff win with TJ Watt?
I don't think so.
So isn't that just kind of criminal to think at this point? And doesn't it really prove the point? Because TJ Watt was here for a lot of years at the end of Ben. But doesn't that just prove the point that maybe your team's best player should be their quarterback?
Be the ideal. It would be optimal.
So then why are the Steelers living in this rupture that I know you, at least till last year, Gingy, you still loved we're going to run it and play defense to win a championship.
I still like
you
that
still
if
in
you
on
can
that?
do it at a high level. I do. I really do.
All right.
You have to have the defense, though, right? Now,
Gingy?
TJ Watt is his piece, but you have to have all the pieces. I'm telling you. We've seen that Baltimore was very, very close, Donkey. And that team is really built off of that method. Yes, they have a running quarterback. They have halfback number one. You know how I feel about this. Now, last year he had an MVP season, threw it and ran it. That's how they got that far. But again,
by the way,
had a primarily
got with Lamar
high-impact running offense with a quarterback who could also throw.
Do I get a counter here by saying the highest percentage of snaps that were passing plays for Baltimore since Lamar Jackson was drafted was last year?
That's crazy.
And ironically,
what was the percentage? That's crazy.
I think it was weren't they in the mid-60s with it? Which was the highest they've ever had since Lamar Jackson was drafted. Is the year they go the deepest in the playoffs.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
So they start shying away from that run-first style and get there. And I hear you, and people should be happy if they want to be happy. But I don't mean this to come off the way it's going to come off. But Gingy, until fans like you stop wearing the black and gold, this is 1999 Steel Curtain 2008 glasses, the goddamn Steelers aren't going to change. Because as long as they think they're giving the fans what they want, which is, we want to be smash mouth football, we're never going to join the modern era. And I don't know if you can compete while not being, part of the innovative crew. I mean, we had an offensive coordinator opening, and we avoided the two top trees, Andy Reid, Sean McVay are the top three. Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. We avoided those trees like the plague.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, Donkey.
I do, and it's buckle up, buttercups. Some other interesting stuff, I guess. You have other teams making some really odd moves, Gingy. Is there any free agent moves that you were like, damn, that team scares me? Now.
Yeah, it's too much to cover, Donkey. I think another cover those moves. These moves were...
We can get into that next week. That's fine. I'll throw these three out to you, Gingy, and you tell me what you really think about them. Houston Texans adding Danielle Hunter as a huge pass rusher to go with that young, really talented team. What you think of that?
Compliments Anderson on the other side. Really going to be able to open them both up. What's that?
Yep. Baltimore finally getting a running back who's aging but still productive in Derrick Henry.
Aging but still productive. I don't know. We got you on tape somewhere, Donkey, saying he's washed up for sure. We should find that.
Yeah, I said he is not the back he was, and he isn't. 4.2 yards per carry for a guy who averaged 6. But let's be honest here, 4.2 yards per carry is Najee Harris. So he was a better version of Najee Harris last year than Najee Harris was. So he's not what he was, but he's not bad. Which, if you've seen what Baltimore's had recently, that's an upgrade? Question mark. And the third move, the Kansas City Chiefs just added Hollywood Brown. What you think of that? Is there about to be a show going on in KC?
Meh.
I tell you what, if Hollywood Brown is healthy, my God, is that kid going to put up some stats?
Meh. We'll see.
Hey, what was that? Is that Antonio Brown's cousin? Something like that?
Yeah,
he's got that clutch vibe. Until he got it, like, you void the injuries, that dude had some pretty productive seasons. I ain't going to lie. I'm kind of bothered by that move, but that's just me. All right, Gingy, do we want to go ahead and just wrap it up here then?
Is there anybody else that we're missing, Donkey? A punter, perhaps?
Oh, my gosh, I forgot. Yeah, the Steelers have a competent punter for the first time since Shankopotamus was drafted. Yeah, I know. Everybody tell me how much I love drafting. Drafting a fat punter was absolutely Donkey's favorite thing ever. Ooh. No one's going to catch me saying anything else because I was...
There's plenty of tape out there on that, for sure. We both enjoyed that move initially. He was a boomer. Fair, he was a freaking boomer, Donkey.
To be fair, yeah, coming out, he killed it. And I instantly said after the first year that they needed to move on because...
it wasn't
my goodness gracious. But
still
Cameron Johnson...
turn out after that either.
Cameron Johnson, the guy who's averaged 47 yards a punt per his career, last year was pretty good in Houston. Is kicked in Philadelphia, so it's done in the elements. I think the Aussie-style kicker is going to be a huge upgrade in the Steelers' punting game. And who knows, maybe that's the biggest move of the offseason, Gingy, is improving the goddamn field position.
Well, we wouldn't have to do that as dang much if we wouldn't have to march him out there 3 or 4 times a half.
His leg's going to be tired with arguing.
Oh, Donkey, don't tell me that now. This is going to be sustained, punishing football, right? Artie Smith, Najee Harris, George Pickens running expert bootleg routes. I can see it all now, Donkey. Beautiful.
From your lips to the football gods to the gridiron that we play on in Pittsburgh.
Here.
I hope that is all good. And we actually missed my other favorite signing. Miles Killebrew's back! Let's go!
Ooh, re-signing. Yeah, we talked more about signings than we did re-signings. I guess we covered Adams and Killebrew. Let's go.
Adams, yeah. But Killebrew, let's go! That one's got me stoked. That dude blocks punts like nobody I've ever seen. Oh, I love it. That is probably... You know what? This special teams, Gingy, gets an A++, because I think we also brought back Christian Kuntz, the long snapper. So
I like
special
that.
teams looking pretty good. If we keep James Pierre and Miles Boykin, got a couple good gunners as well. Who knows? Maybe our special teams becomes the X factor going into next season. There's always hopes and dreams and all the whatnot on that.
There you go. It has been the X Factor a couple times so far.
Normally in the wrong way.
No.
No.
No. What do you mean in the wrong way? It's maybe because of Fat Punter, but we've got like at least one or two
or
punt
2
blocks
years
every
ago
season
where
in key
Boswell
moments.
actually cost us a couple games.
Okay, yeah, you can also talk about Gunner having some problems too, but not on Killebrew's end. He is a consistent producer.
The dude's a stud, but that's like saying Jalen Warren made our offense great.
Yeah,
like, yeah, he did, but
but
I don't know, Gingy. I guess it's to the point. Your final thoughts or final stories from Gingy?
I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to contribute. Boy, there's a lot that went down. We'll have to keep parsing through that as we keep creeping towards the draft.
Any shout outs for you? I know it's off season, kind of be weird, but shout out.
Boy, should have prepared one. Nah, not in me today, donkey. Still too busy reading.
Shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, the Pitt Panther who one time tackled the Duke running back and quarterback at the same time. And that, of course, is none other than Aaron Donald. Can't wait to see him in Canton. He just called it a career. So shout out to the big stud. I wish he would have ended his career with the Steelers because
should have been a
Steeler. Some of that.
Oh, yeah,
for sure. I guess I'll let you know I'm the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey on Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger is a YouTube channel where you get all this fun content. Hopefully we get Laskers for his take on the real nonsensical offseason that's going on. Leave us a like, follow, comment. Tell us if there's anything you want us to cover, any team you want us to look at. I'll send a text out to the guys and be like, hey, let's look at this team's offseason and see if we think they suck or are better. And, Gingy, head it out.
This is Mutant Gingy. We in the house hanging out, and we're just all living in a nonsensical Steelers world.